So now students, so on this topic, let us discuss about the rainfall and measurement of rainfall, right? Now in the previous video, previous lecture, what we discussed about the water budget equation. In the water budget equation, I told you about the precipitation, right? So precipitation can be in the form of anything. So precipitation can be in the form of rainfall. It can be in the form of snow also. It can be in the form of hailstorm also, in the form of drizzle also, and there are some other can be forms of precipitation. But what we are basically concerned with is about the rainfall, right? So now let me tell you how rainfall is happening, right? Or how the precipitation is actually happening. So what is happening is that you know that due to the water vapor, they go up, right? The water vapor, they go up, and in the atmosphere what we have, you can say, sufficient nuclei. From where that nuclei comes? That nuclei comes from the combustion, right? For example, there is some forest fire, right? There's some combustion, right? So that smoke, it goes to the atmosphere, right? It aids to the condensation of the water molecules, and there should be sufficient environment condition also. There should be sufficient air also. There should be sufficient, you can say, weather systems also, so that precipitation comes down to earth, right? So it is a very long process, right? How the clouds are formed, how the condensation of that water molecules take place, right? How the nuclei, they go to the clouds, right? You know that the clouds are, they're heavily charged, they're heavily negatively charged actually, right? And due to that, lightning and thunderstorms that also occur, right? But we are not going too deep in that. But first of all, I would like to tell you that the precipitation can be of, you can say, many types. So first type is rainfall, which we'll be studying. First is rainfall, right? So types of precipitation. So types of precipitation. It can be rainfall, which we'll be studying, right? Rainfall. And you must have studied that. We are saying that now it's today there will be heavy rainfall in Mumbai. Today there will be heavy rainfall in Kerala. So what does that heavy rainfall and medium and light rainfall actually means? So let me make you understand. Now the rainfall, it is usually expressed in millimeters per hour. Millimeters per hour. It can be centimeter per hour also, but usually we are expressing rainfall in millimeter per hour. So it is known to be a light rain. Light rainfall if the intensity is denoted by I, right? The intensity of rainfall in millimeter per hour is 1 to 2.5, is 1 to 2.5, right? Then it is known as the light rainfall, right? Now second comes about the moderate rainfall. Moderate rainfall. So it goes from 2.5 to 7.5 millimeters per hour. It is known as the moderate rainfall. The third one is the heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall. So heavy rainfall, when you have intensity greater than 7.5 millimeter per hour, it is known to be a heavy rainfall. And these three questions have been asked in examinations. So you have to learn these values: 1 to 2.5, 2.5 to 7.5, more than 7.5 millimeter per hour, and what is the category of that particular rainfall. Clear? Okay. So now the next thing is, what is the size of rainfall? You must be seeing that sometimes we have bigger drops, sometimes we also have very small drops. So the size of rainfall, the size of rain, it varies from 0.5 mm to 6 mm. 0.5 mm to 6 mm. That is the size of your rains. Clear? There can be some other forms of precipitation also. There can be, apart from rainfall, you can also have drizzle, right? You can also have drizzle. Second one is drizzle. Drizzle. So drizzle, I can explain a very light rainfall, very light rainfall. So the intensity of rainfall is less than, right? The intensity of rainfall in drizzle is less than 1 millimeters per hour. 1 millimeters per hour. So very thin and very light rainfall, that is known as your drizzle, right? And the size, it usually it is also less than 0.5 mm, right? The size of the drop, it is also less than 0.5 mm. Then you can also have snow in the form of precipitation. Also, you can also have snow. Let's write snow. You can also have your hailstorm or hails. right? You can also have, apart from hails, now what are hails? The bigger drops, right? For example, in Delhi, in northern parts, we have hailstorms also. So the diameter of the hails, they are generally greater than 8 mm. So more than 8 mm. So that form of, you can say, precipitation is known as hail, right? We can also have, you can say, apart from drizzle, we can also have glaze and sleet also. We can also have glaze, we can also have sleet, right? No need to go deep inside it, but this is important because this question has been asked in theoretical examinations. Clear? And the size of the rainfall is also important, right? So I hope that you have understood the types of precipitation. Now I told you that there should be, you can say, a particular weather system for precipitation, right? Because if the weather is normal, you can say that you can see in your normal life also we have a lot of clouds, but they do not rain, right? So there should be, you can see, a particular, you can say, weather system for precipitation. Now what are the types of weather systems? Now let us understand the types of weather system. So types of weather system, right? That is also important, right? The first type of weather system is known as front. Now what is front? Now let me explain you. So first of all, let me write down the heading. That is the types of weather system, right? Weather system for precipitation. Weather system for precipitation. Weather system for precipitation. The first weather system is known as front. Front. Now, what is actually front? Now, you tell me which air has lower density, the colder air or the warmer air? Obviously, the warmer air has lighter density. That is why it goes up. Even in your environment, also you must have studied about plumes, right? So in plumes, what is happening? The warmer particles, they go up. Why? Because they have a lighter density. Simple. So what is happening is that, let us say that this is your cooler air. This is your cooler air. This is cool air, right? And this is at some distance. These are your, you can say, houses here, and this is your warm air. This is your warm air. So what will happen is that when these two types of air, when they will, you can say, merge, or when they will intersect, what will happen is that the cooler air, the cooler breeze, it will go downside, and upper breeze, after colliding, it will go upside. Why? Because it has lighter density. The density of warmer air is less than the density of cooler air. Simple. That is why it will go upside. Now, when it will go upside, it will form clouds after meeting with the nuclei. From where that nuclei has come, nuclei present in atmosphere in abundance comes from combustion. And it forms clouds. It forms clouds after that due to condensation, and that precipitation happens. So first type of weather system is front. First one is front. Now coming to the second type of weather system, which is known as cyclone. Now let us understand about cyclone. I am rubbing it, right? I hope you have understood it, right? This is a very, you can say, now what type of questions have come from this topic is that the type of weather system in which the warmer air and the colder air collide, or they can say they meet, and the warmer air goes up, that type of weather system is known as number 1 front, number 2 is oleographic, number 3 is cyclone, number 4 is anticyclone. So the correct answer is front. So these types of questions have come from this topic in ESC examinations and in earlier GATE examination also, 2002, 2003. So these types of theoretical questions have come in examination. That is important, right? So let me rub this. Now let's come to the second type of weather system, that is known as cyclone, right? So you must have heard about cyclone, right? So cyclone, in Odisha, cyclones are coming every year, right? So different type of cyclones are coming. We are naming those cyclones also. So first of all, the second type of weather system is cyclone. Now in India, they are known as cyclone. In USA, they are known as hurricanes. Hurricanes. And in, you can say, Southeast Asia, they are known as typhoons. Clear? Now the question is, sir, is it important to remember? Now I have told you that whatever I am writing on board, whether I am just putting a full stop, that is also important. I am bold, right? Because this question has already come recently some Coal India examination was there for MT management training Coal India exam. So this question was asked that the word typhoon is used for cyclones in the four options were given. Indonesia, second was USA, third was Europe, and fourth was I guess Australia, right? The correct answer would be Indonesia because Indonesia comes in Southeast Asia, right? So in Southeast Asia, these types of the cyclones in India and in Southeast Asia, these are known as typhoon. In USA, they are known as hurricanes. Clear? So whatever I'm writing on board, that is very important because I have gone through all the questions came in different type of examination in GATE, in ESE, some state examination, every examination. So whatever is important, I am telling you. Okay. Okay. Now this is cyclone. So what is happening in cyclone is that now in cyclone the direction of wind speed also important. The direction of wind speed is anti-clockwise in northern hemisphere. We come in northern hemisphere. India is in northern hemisphere, right? Anti-clockwise in northern hemisphere. This is the direction of wind speed, and clockwise in southern hemisphere and clockwise in southern hemisphere. Clear? So that is the direction of wind is cyclone. Now what happens in cyclone is that, so we have very big cyclones. It can range up to 250 kilometers to 300 kilometers square also, right? Very big area of cyclone. So now in cyclone you have three regions. The first region is the eye of the cyclone. Eye of cyclone. Eye is the middlemost portion of cyclone, right? For example, this is your cyclone. The cyclone is happening over a very large area. So this middle portion of the cyclone is known as eye of the cyclone, right? Then you have the medium part of cyclone. Medium part. This is the medium part of cyclone, right? Which is equidistant from the outer portion and the inner eye of the cyclone. And third, we have the outermost part of the cyclone, right? Third one is the outermost part. Outermost part of cyclone, right? This is not important, the parts of cyclone, but what is important is, which has been asked in examination very frequently, about the direction of speed and the pressure. Now let me tell you about the direction of speed and pressure by drawing a graph, right? Now that is important. Now you have understood there are three parts of cyclone. First is the eye of the cyclone, second is the medium part, and the third one is the outermost part. Now let me draw a graph. This is the distance from the eye of the cyclone. This is 0, 10 kilometer, 50 kilometer, 100 kilometer, 200 kilometer distance from the eye of the cyclone. This is 10, this is 50, this is 100, and so on, right? Now what is happening is that when I compare the wind speed, so the wind speed of the cyclone is highest at the eye. Again I am repeating, the wind speed of a cyclone is highest at the eye. So this is highest at the eye, and then it decreases. And then it decreases. This is about the wind speed. Now let's come to the pressure. So the pressure at the eye of the cyclone is lowest, right? Again I'm repeating, the pressure at the eye of the cyclone is lowest, and when you go away from the eye of the cyclone, the pressure increases, right? Now when you go away from the eye of the cyclone, the pressure it increases. Here also and here also. Now let's come out about the rainfall. This is your pressure. Clear? Now let's come to the rainfall intensity. So at the eye of the cyclone, if the rain intensity is high, then it decreases to the medium zone, and then it again increases, right? So at the medium zone it has the least intensity, right? And at the outer also it has very high intensity, and at the eye also it has very high intensity. This is the intensity of rainfall. Eye. Intensity of rainfall. This is pressure, this is wind speed. So this question has been asked in examinations, that as we go away from the eye, which of the following increases, which of the following decreases, right? What will happen to the wind speed when we go away from the eye and if we come towards the eye, what will happen? So these questions have been asked about cyclones. Yeah. So this was important about the intensity of rainfall, about the pressure, and about the wind speed also. Clear? So I hope that you have understood about the cyclones. Clear? Now cyclones are also of two types. First one is a tropical cyclone, another one is the extratropical cyclone. First one is tropical, and then we have the extratropical also. extra tropical cyclones also. No need to worry about what is tropical, what is extratropical. Just have in mind the rainfall intensity of an extratropical cyclone. It is, you can say, for a higher duration as compared to for the tropical rainfall. For example, let us say a tropical rainfall, let us say it has a rainfall intensity for about, let's say, 2 hours. The extratropical cyclone will have a rainfall intensity of 5 hours or 6 hours or 7 hours. So the duration of rainfall intensity is higher in the case of extratropical cyclone. Simple. Clear? Now, the next thing is that when the cyclones, they are very powerful when they are in the ocean. Why? Because this eye of the cyclone is absorbing the latent heat from the oceans. Right? Now, what is latent heat? Type of energy. Just understand that the energy, the cyclone is taking energy from the oceans. So the latent heat from the oceans. Now, when they will go to the land, what will happen? There is no source of energy because the cyclones were taking energy from ocean. But when the cyclones they meet the land, what will happen? Now, initially they are at very high force, but there is no source of energy. After some time, 1 day, 2 days, or 3 days, they disappear. You must have heard about that. Cyclones are coming to Odisha, cyclones are coming to Tamil Nadu and some other eastmost part of India. You can say near the Bay of Bengal, a lot of cyclones are coming. But when they meet the land, after 2 to 3 to 4 days, you must have seen in news that the effect of cyclone is gone now. Now, why it is gone? The cyclone was there for about 10 days, 20 days, even 1 month also. But just after hitting the land, now it disappears in 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Why? Because there is no source of energy. When it was in the ocean, the source of energy was the latent heat from the ocean. But when they meet the land, there is no source of energy. So after 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, they disappear. So this is important that the source of energy for cyclone, latent heat from oceans. So we have already discussed about the frontal one, right? We have discussed about your cyclones also. We have discussed about. Now the third, and cyclones is of two types, tropical and extratropical, right? Now the third type of weather system we have is about the anticyclones, right? So in case of cyclones, so there is only one difference between cyclones and anticyclones. In case of cyclones, the direction of velocity of wind was anti-clockwise in northern hemisphere and clockwise in southern hemisphere. But in case of our anticyclones, it is vice versa. It means that in the northern hemisphere, we have clockwise movement of wind. Clockwise movement of wind. And in the southern hemisphere, it is anti-clockwise. Simple, right? Now let's come to the convective precipitation, right? Now, how the convective precipitation occurs? For example, let us say that you have this area. This is an area. This is an area, right? Okay. In this area, let us say the temperature is now 40 degrees Celsius. And surrounding the area, there is cooler wind, right? Surrounding the area, we have cool wind, right? We have cool air or cool wind, right? Okay. Now, in this area, the temperature is high. What will happen? Let us say that this pocket of air, it becomes very hot, the density becomes very small, then it will go up, right? Now, there is a gap. Now, to fill this gap, what will happen? This cool air or the cool breeze will come and fill this gap. Clear? Similarly, it will happen, right? Similarly, here also the warm air, it will go up. Here also the warm air will go up, and the cool air, it will come and fill the gap, right? And if the environmental conditions are favorable, there is much humidity, right? There are many nuclei in the atmosphere. Clouds will be formed, and subsequently precipitation or rain will happen. So this is known as the convective precipitation. Now let's come to the orographic precipitation. Now in orographic precipitation, what is happening is that this type of precipitation happens when there is a big barrier. Let us say mountains, right? It happens usually in mountains or hilly areas. Let us say this is a mountain, right? So there is a mountain. When the wind will come from this direction or that direction, whichever direction. Now there is a barrier. It cannot cross that, right? It cannot cross this mountain, right? What will happen? The breeze will come, and here it will go up. Due to this barrier, the breeze will go up. Now if this will go up, what will happen? If it has sufficient humidity or sufficient moisture, so clouds will be formed here. Clouds will be formed and your heavy rains will happen, right? Heavy precipitation will happen. So this is known as the orographic precipitation. Now the questions which are generally asked in examination, and most of I have already told you, but the questions can be like this. The type of precipitation which is for which the mountains are responsible is convective, anticyclones, cyclones, or orographic. The correct answer would be orographic precipitation. These questions have been asked frequently many times, right? Now let's come to the next topic, next portion. Now we have studied how the precipitation is done, how the precipitation is formed, what is the size of rain, right? What are different types of precipitation, different type of weather system. We have already discussed these things, right? Now the next thing, we are going step by step, right? Now the next thing would be, okay, precipitation has occurred, okay. Now how to measure that precipitation? So now we will be discussing about measurement of rainfall, because precipitation is of many types, but we are basically concerned with rainfall in hydrology, right? And in irrigation also we will be mainly concerned about rainfall, right? So now what we will be seeing is that how to measure precipitation. That is also important, right? So let me rub this and let me tell you how to measure the precipitation. So precipitation or rainfall is measured by an instrument which is known as rain gauge, right? Which is known as rain gauge. In some books or sometimes in examination also, pluviometer are also mentioned, oviometer is also mentioned, and hydrometer is also mentioned. So let me tell you what is that instrument which is used for measurement of rainfall. So rainfall is measured by an instrument which is known as, let me write the other name which we are usually using, that is rain gauge. Rain gauge. And rain gauge is also known as pluviometer. Pluviometer. It is also known as hygrometer. Hygrometer. And is also known as obrometer. Obrometer, right? Okay, whatever you want to call it, but generally we are using rain gauge, right? So rain gauge is of two types. The first one is type 1. So type 1 is a non-recording rain gauge. Non-recording rain gauge. Rain gauge. And we have type 2. Type 2 rain gauge are generally recording type rain gauges. Recording type rain gauge, right? So non-recording rain gauge is also known as Simon's rain gauge. Simon's rain gauge, right? Non-recording rain gauge are many types. First one we have tipping bucket type. Tipping bucket type. We have natural siphon type. Natural siphon type. It is also known as float type. Float type. We also have weighing bucket. Weighing, WEIGHING. Weighing bucket type, etc. So a lot of rain gauges are important. Now, first of all, let me make you understand what is this non-recording and what is this recording. So in non-recording, as from the name it is clear. So what we have to do? We have to do some calculations manually. We have to do calculations, right? So and in recording gauges, they are automatic, right? They are sometimes clock driven. They are sometimes graph driven also, right? So automatically calculations are done. You already getting graphs, right? But as far as the non-recording or gauges are concerned, in India, what we are generally using is Simon's rain gauge. That is very important. This question has been asked in examination. That which of the following is type A or non-recording rain gauge? Simon's, tipping bucket, natural siphon, or this. So people, they get confused with natural siphon and Simon. This is siphon action, siphonage in your fluid mechanics, and this is your Simon. So don't confuse Simon with siphon, right? Many students, they confuse Simon with siphon. I have seen that, right? So whenever non-recording rain gauge question is there, so that is Simon's rain gauge is the non-recording rain gauge, right? So non-recording, what we have to do? We have to do calculations manually. So let me tell you about the you can say the arrangement of non-recording rain gauge. So you have a bucket here, you have a bucket here, then this is a container, and on the container you have a funnel, right? You have a funnel. So when rain is falling, so rain will be collected here. You will measure the depth of this rainfall, and you will divide this depth with the time. For example, for 1 hour, for 2 hours, for 3 hours, you will divide it with time, and you will get the rainfall intensity in millimeter per hour. Millimeter per hour or centimeter per hour, whatever you want, right? You will get the rainfall intensity, right? It means that in this we have to measure it manually, and we have to do some calculations manually. So that is why it is known as non-recording. It is not recording on its own, right? So in India, generally it is using very extensively the Simon's rain gauge. I have seen this type of rain gauge when I was in JFK, right? So I have seen this rain gauge very frequently, right? Now the thing is that before establishing any type of rain gauge, whether it is a non-recording or a recording, a few things should be kept in mind. The first thing is that wherever you are installing a rain gauge, that area should be plain at least, right? The second thing is that the height of the rain gauge should not be very high. The height of the rain gauge should not be very high. Also, it should not be very low. If it would be very low, what will happen? There will be splashing inside. For example, it is very low. If rain is falling, there will be splashes, which will disturb the, you can say, disturb the actual level, right, which we are getting from the rain, right? The third thing is that whenever you have a rain gauge, so you have to surround that area 5.5 meter into 5.5 meter with a fence, so that no children they come there, right? And there is no disturbance to the rain gauge. So these things should be kept in mind before installing any rain gauge, right? Now let's come to the recording type rain gauge. So in recording type rain gauge, what is happening? You have an instrument, right? Then your rain is being collected, and that particular arrangement is connected to either an electronic machine, or it is either connected to a clock mechanism, right? So these types of things are happening in rain gauge. So tipping bucket type, natural siphon type, or float type, and weighing bucket type. But the most important for us is natural siphon type or float type. So an IS code is also there for this type, right? And it is mostly used in India. It is mostly used in India. So what is actually happening in natural siphon type or float type? So you have a mechanism, right? You have a mechanism, and when rain is falling, the water is coming from this, right? So what is happening is that there is a floating mechanism here. So when the water level is increasing, this is going up. When the water level is increasing, the level of this instrument, whatever the arrangement is, it will go up, because in the lower portion we have water, and we have the measuring scales also we have, right? Suppose initially it was here 0. After 8 hours later it is here. Let us say it is 2 centimeter. So the rainfall intensity will be 2 divided by 10, right? Now what will happen after it has reached its maximum level? After it has reached its maximum level, then we have a mechanism that all the water it goes out. All the water it goes out. It means that again it will come back to its original position, and the process will repeat itself, right? Now if you draw the graph of siphon, natural siphon type, the graph would be like this. The graph would be like this, right? Let us say this is your rainfall depth in centimeter or millimeter, whatever you want, and this is your time. So initially it will be increasing like this, and then again dipping. Why dipping? Because it has a mechanism that after reaching some level, whole of water it goes out. Again it goes right. Then again it will be increasing like this, and then again drop, right? Then again it will increase, and then again drop. Why drop? Because after reaching certain level, the whole water will go out, right? And from there we can determine the rainfall intensity. Simple. Clear? And IS code is also there, but that is not important. So this was about the type 1 and type 2 rain gauges. Clear? Now the thing is that the IS code, the Indian standard, has given us certain, you can say, recommendations that these much should be the minimum number of rain gauges in a particular area. right? For example, let's say I live in Delhi. So how many rain gauges should be there? If I live in, let's say, hilly area, let's say it's Uttarakhand area or some other northeastern Arunachal area. So how many rain gauges should be there in a particular area, right? So there should be a limit, right? And there should be a minimum number of rain gauges. It is not like that. You must have seen that it is raining here in Noida and it is not raining in Delhi. It has happened many times, right? So there should be a, you can say, a minimum number of rain gauges for a particular area. So Indian standard has given us that limit, and that is very important because it has been asked in a lot of examinations, right? So the thing is that the minimum number of rain gauges, right? The ideal number of rain gauges. Let me rub it and let me write the minimum number of rain gauges as per the IS code, Indian standard, right? I hope you have got it, right? The recording and non-recording one. Now next one is the number of rain gauges. Number of rain gauges as per the IS specification. So IS code says that if it is a plain area, then for plain area you must have at least one for 520 kilometer square area. If it is a plain area, at least one for 520 kilometer square area, right? Now if you have, you can say it is not totally flat, it has some undulation, right? It is not properly plain, right? It is, you can say it has you can say the average elevation, you can say for average elevation around 1000 meter, right? If you have this type of situation, then you should have at least one gauge station for 290 to 325 kilometer square. From 290 to 325 kilometers, sorry, 390, sorry. 390, right? Right? To 290 to 390 kilometers square. 260 to 390. 260 to 390. There is the exact value, okay? 260 to 390 kilometers square, that is the minimum number of rain gauges you should have for a particular area, right? Now, if it is a hilly area, because you know that in hilly areas we have a lot of precipitation. So the IS says that for a hilly area, the minimum number of rain gauges should be at least one for 130 kilometers square. 130 kilometers square. This is important, right? Important. Okay. So at least one for 130 kilometers square for a hilly area, right? So I hope you have understood the minimum number of rain gauges, right? But the thing is that suppose you already have a rain gauge in a particular area, right? And you have some data also of that particular area, then there is a formula also, right? The formula is N. N is the adequate number of rain gauges. Let me write it. This is important. Adequate number of rain gauges. Rain gauges. It is actually equal to, when to apply this formula? When already you have a particular rain gauge in a particular area, right? And you have some data. You have the mean rainfall also, you have a standard deviation also, you have the coefficient of variation also, right? At that time, for that particular area, the minimum number or the adequate number of rain gauges are given by coefficient of variation divided by error square is M. Right? Where CV is the coefficient of variation, epsilon is the error. They can be error, right? 10% error, 20% error, right? If examination comes, error will be given to you, right? Let me write it here. So CV is known as the coefficient of variation. Coefficient of variation, right? And coefficient of variation is given by 100 into sigma m minus 1 divided by p bar, right? Sigma m minus 1 divided by p bar. P bar is the mean precipitation, right? So p bar is the mean precipitation, and which is given by 1 upon n into p1 plus p2 plus p3 plus so on to pn, right? What is n? N is the number of stations in that particular area. P1, P2, P3 means is the precipitation measured at gauge station 1, 2, 3, 4 and divided with the number of stations, right? So you'll be getting the mean precipitation. Clear? P bar is the mean. Sigma m minus 1 is the standard deviation, right? So let me write it here. Let me rub this, right? And let me write it that sigma m minus 1 is the standard deviation. So let me rub this, because this is important, right? A few years back in GATE examination, directly question came from this topic, right? So next one is sigma m minus 1. Sigma m minus 1 is the standard deviation, and if you know in mathematics, standard deviation is given by under root of summation I is equals to 1 to m, right? So it is pi minus p bar square divided by p bar. P bar is the mean precipitation, right? P bar, sorry, m minus 1. P bar is the mean precipitation. Clear? M is the number of stations, right? So for sigma m minus 1, you have to calculate like this, right? If you know the coefficient of variation, an error will be given to you. Epsilon usually it is taken as 10%, but in question it will be given to you, right? So error means is that what is the error in calculating the, you can say the mean rainfall in various stations, right? So that there it will be given to you. It can be 10%, 15% also, maximum 20%, but generally it is 10%, right? Now students, let us understand the concept of estimation of missing data. Now let us say that at a rain gauge station, now you have recorded, let's say average annual precipitation for let us say 5 stations. Let us say you have 5 stations, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stations, right? Let us say that you have recorded annual average precipitation of these 5 stations, right? But suppose that at some day, due to your let's say due to the failure of instrument, or let us say that the observer was absent on that day, you forgot to take a data for a particular day at a particular station. Now to recover that data, because we cannot go in the past and record the data, now to recover that data, what we do is that we use this technique known as the estimation of missing data, right? So there is a technique by which we can determine the missing data which we have actually missed. Either it can be due to the instrument failure, or it can be due to your negligence of the observer also, due to that also, right? Now if the data has been missed, then it can be determined by using you can say 2 formulae. The first formula is case number 1. If the average annual data at the particular station X, let us say that for a particular station X we have missed the data, I am denoting it that particular station by X, right? Now if the precipitation at X, right, is less than or equal to 10% of variation, 10% of variation, then at that time the value of X at that station is given by 1 upon m. M is the number of stations, P1 plus P2 plus P3 plus so on to Pm. Okay? It means that we have to add the total precipitation of all the stations and divide it with the number of stations to get the precipitation of that particular station X. But this formula is only valid when the precipitation at X, right, it lies within the range of 10% of the average annual precipitation, right? Sorry, right? And one more important thing, the World Meteorological Organization, it has told us that if we want to determine the annual average precipitation, you have to take the data into consideration for 30 years. For 30 years, right? And every decade you have to take the data and divide it with the number of years to get the average annual precipitation. This question has been asked in some examination. The question was like this: as per the World Meteorological data, the average annual precipitation is calculated for a period of, the correct answer is 30 years. Clear? Now, if the value of P at X station is less than or equal to 10% of the variation, then this is the formula. But if it is greater than that, B, if the variation is greater than 10%, at that time the precipitation at X is given by actually 1 upon m, Px upon m. We have P1 plus P2 plus 3P3 plus so on to P. I will explain you. You will further understand this concept when I will be solving one or two numericals based on this concept, right? Because questions have been asked in GATE examination also from these two forms, right? So students, I hope that you have understood the topic of rainfall measurement and the measurement devices for the rainfall, right? Now let's move to the next topic. In the next topic, we will be solving some numericals based on whatever we have studied about precipitation and rainfall till now. Let us solve a few numericals and further strengthen our concepts, right? So thank you.